All right, so we got a hospital here. Really, the best benefit of the hospital. So, we're talking about the hospital. There's a couple things that the hospital can do for you. The big things are that you can heal up in the hospital, either just an amount of HP or max HP for a different amount of relics. You can heal diseases in the hospital, which is one of the most powerful things that you can do here as well. You can also remove negative quirks and lock in positive quirks, which is powerful. And you might think why you want to lock in positive quirks. If you have one that's really, really good and you've built a character around it, like you've got trinkets that are working well with it and all that kind of stuff, you definitely might want to consider locking it in. It is kind of expensive. It's 32 relics versus the 16 that it costs to remove a negative one. But the benefit is that you lock it in. It's going to stick with you the entire game, because once you hit the max amount of positive quirks, you can rotate. You can get to an end and have a quirk roll over for another one, or use an item, and that can cause it to roll out. So definitely something to keep in mind. The other thing here is the pharmacy. Currently, they did get rid of the ability to buy trinkets here. So really all you can buy is generally healing and DOT specific combat and in items. You can also get things like milk soaked linen and stuff, but anything that's going to basically remove negative things from you, or give you buffs to healing and dot resistance, you can go ahead and buy here as well. Dot, yeah, so dot is damage over time, Swan. Yeah, damage over time, yep. So in this case, we're going to go look through and see if there are any quirks that we really don't like a negative 30% bleed resistance. There's a lot of bleed in this game, so we're going to go ahead and get rid of that. Head in the sand, we're also going to go get rid of, just to lower the chance of him getting blinded as much as he is. And so we're down to 10 relics, and we're going to go ahead and leave. So yeah, that's the hospital. It's one of the most powerful nodes if you need it. If you don't need it, it's kind of weak as far as the shopping experience, but it can be pretty good. So all right, so here we have the assistance encounter. This is one of the more common encounters that you're going to find in the game, probably on par with combat or resistance encounters. So one of the biggest things here is this is a great place to either build or potentially break relationships. So you can see here that all your characters, not all of them will have an interaction that they want to have with the helpless few or the desperate few or whatever they're called. In this case, we rolled all of them. But depending on who you pick, you're going to get different interactions between your characters, and you can see that visualized when you roll over a character. You can see here that this will have a negative interaction with the Jester, that's the blue color, and a positive interaction with the Highwayman, which is the gold color that's around him. So you can roll, generally speaking, it's going to give you plus or minus 2 pips of relationship. It can roll higher, it can have like a crit roll and go up to 3, so that is something to keep in mind. You can also right click on your characters anytime and take a look at their relationships. But the big thing here that you're going to get at the assistance encounter is going to be items. You can get in items, you can get food items, you can get combat items, you can get trinkets as well, I do believe, though I think that's less common. But the big thing here is going to be torchlight. So if you're running a game where you actually have the torch, you don't have the infernal torch applied, you're definitely going to want to keep these in mind. If you're running low on torch, you're going to want to come here and try to get some torchlight. Otherwise, your only way to get torchlight increased is via Glimmer of Hopes, or by letting your torchlight go to 0 and then having a ambush, and then you get 40 torchlight from that. So that's what these are very powerful for. If you are running an infernal run, generally speaking, you're probably going to want to avoid these unless you're looking to build relationships. Later in the game, they become a lot less applicable, especially if you're running infernal, because no matter what you do, positive or negative, your torchlight is not going to be affected. And so yeah, that's the assistance encounter. All right, so here we have the hero shrine, or the Shrine of Reflection node. And so because I'm fully leveled up, you won't be able to see exactly what this does normally, but as you're leveling up characters, as you unlock characters, this is where you're going to go ahead and unlock their abilities. So you go to a shrine and you select a hero that you don't have all of their abilities unlocked, and it's going to either give you a kind of a quick little cutscene that's going to have all of them are based on the hero's past, and you progress every time you take a hero there and you select them, you're going to get to the next thing. And basically you might have a quick cutscene that's just going to go into some of their lore, or you might have an actual not all of them are combat sequences, but they're all based kind of on the combat that you have in game, but it's kind of like a lore cutscene that you have to interact with, and you have to actually beat it in order to get the ability unlock. But all of those, the cutscenes and like the combat sequences, each one of those will unlock an ability for you to use on that character. And then once you have all the abilities unlocked, or if you just decide to select a character that has all their abilities unlocked, basically how this operates is it just gives you a free mastery point. So once you have all the characters unlocked, this is essentially just a mastery point, and that's all it is. So it doesn't matter who you pick. You won't have any interactions that the characters are going to have, so you're not going to be able to get positive or negative relationships from it. All it is just you select somebody, and it gives you a mastery point, at least in the current build of the game. And yeah, so that's pretty much it for the Shrine of Reflection, or the Hero Shrine. Okay, so here we have the Lair, which is a unique node that is in every single one of the different biomes. There's only one of them in every one of the biomes. It's usually scouted. I think it's almost 100% scouted when you enter, but I'm not sure if that's true, but it seems like it is. Every one of them is unique to the biome that they're in, but they do have similar mechanics. So we're going to talk about the mechanics that you're going to have while encountering a Lair. So like most other nodes, you're going to go ahead and go into combat. Now, one thing you will note with this is that there is no selection screen, right, where you can see some people want to run, some people want to go in. It is just either you choose to do it or you choose to not do it. And then what happens is you're going to go ahead and you're going to enter straight into combat, and you're going to see in the top, you actually can't see because my screen is in the way, but you can kind of see the tops of them. But there are 3 levels to a Lair. So what's going to happen is you're going to have 2 rounds of regular fights. They are randomly generated fights depending on which area you're in. The enemies on those fights are going to be the enemies that are specific to the biome that you're in. You're going to have 1 round. You're going to go ahead, and I'll show you this. You'll have, after combat, you'll be shown a screen that's going to tell you what the next area is going to have for you for a reward. You're going to go ahead and fight them, and then if you beat that Lair and decide to continue going down, then you will run into the boss, the mini boss, or the Lair boss that is on the final level. So I'm going to go ahead and have this fight, and I'll show you what that looks like for going down, just so you can take a look at it. All right, one sec. All right, so as you can see here at the end of combat, you're going to go ahead and get this screen for the Lair. It's going to tell you what you got from your fight that you just beat. Then it's going to tell you what you're going to get in the next battle. And then when you go up against the boss, it'll tell you what loot you're going to get from the boss if you do defeat the boss, which is going to be like the boss trinkets, the trophy, and all that fun stuff. So you can go ahead and click advance to go to the next level, or escape, which will let you leave at that current stage. So you do not need to go all the way down to the bottom. And that's pretty much how the Lair operates. All right, so the next node that we're going to talk about is called a Cultist Encounter, or also known as Oblivion's Ingress. So this is a semi-rare node that you can find on the map. It's essentially the exact same as a Resistance Encounter or a combat node in the case, but it gives you a specific set of enemies. So we'll always give you cultists to fight. When you go ahead and select into it, you do get the option to either run or leave the fight, depending on the interactions that your characters have. You can see they will interact with one another. And like a regular combat node, you do also have the option here for sometimes getting buffs. So in this case, we have a buff to strength and speed. And then you go ahead, you click into it. In this case, we got a little bit lucky of a relationship here, so they are pretty respectful one another. You can see it does interact with the relationships when you get into the fight. And yeah, you go ahead and have a cultist fight. It's a guaranteed cultist fight, so at least you know what you're getting into, and you either win or you lose, and that's pretty much how it goes. So yeah, that's the cultist node. Here we have a pretty rare, there's always one of these in every biome. This is the Watchtower. It's pretty simple. Essentially, if you go here and you activate it, it will scout the entire region. These are really powerful if you get them early on in your run, right? You get them, you go into the biome, it's like the first or second node that you come across. It allows you to kind of make decisions about where you want to go, depending on what you're trying to get from that specific biome. But otherwise, you can find them even as the last node before the Oblivion's Ingress at the end, which is pretty rough. If you find them at the end, it doesn't do anything for you other than that. So yeah, that's the Watchtower. As you can see, it just goes ahead, scouts everything, or show it on the map, and lets you make those decisions from there. Okay, so here we have a interesting node, and that is the Oasis. This is a pretty powerful node that you can come across, specifically if you're running into issues with stress. Like most other nodes, you will have the selection between your team that will affect their relationships, depending on if they want to leave or if they want to stay. But there are two different interactions that you can essentially gain from this. If you have positive interactions, they're all going to give you +5 torchlight, and they can either give you -5 stress, which is indicated here by that stress indicator, or they can give you what it calls it supplies, but what it is mineral-rich water. And essentially, that is a combat item that will heal both stress and health. It's a pretty powerful item. So if you're having somebody in your team who's suffering, they have 6 or 7, 8, 9 stress, whatever the case is, you can get lucky here and potentially remove 5 stress in one go, which is really powerful. Or if you're looking for that combat item, which I think is probably the more powerful of the options, if you can risk not taking the stress heal, it's pretty good. And of course, you have to take note of your team's relationships as well. And yeah, that's the Oasis. Okay, so this next node that we're going to talk about is the academic study. And this is one of the more interesting and dynamic ones that you can run into. So you're going to go ahead and select it. And as usual, you're going to have an interaction selection here with your characters. Now, that being said, what changes here is what you're interacting with. There's a bunch of different things that you can interact with, and they all have different effects. So some of them might give you trinkets, some of them might give you combat items, some of them might force you into a boss fight. Some of them will give you, and a lot of them will give you like negative quirks as well. But some of the most powerful trinkets that you can get in the game come from the academic study. Some of them also just give you like some gold or a item for the stagecoach. So it's definitely a risk reward kind of thing. You won't get the same item from the same like if you run into this painting multiple times, there are multiple different things that you can get from it. And so you kind of just have to learn, what those things are by interacting with it, seeing if it's worth it or not. As you can see here, we do have positive and negative interactions. These have kind of long sets of things that can happen. You can always hit Alt and see what those things are. So you can see here, if we interact with it, it's going to be a -10 flame, chance for a trinket, a mixed quirk, which means it can either be positive or negative, and mixed stress, meaning that it'll either be a positive or negative stress induction. So you never know what you're going to get. And yeah, that's pretty much the academic study there. It's a risk reward, but it's an interesting one. Okay, so this node is called the Academics Cache. This is a pretty simple node. You'll come across it fairly often, but it's basically just a loot box. You get a random assortment of items, combat items, and possibly trinkets, and it's just kind of hit or miss what you get. And yeah, so it can be definitely helpful if you're looking to stockpile some more items, maybe get a cool trinket or two, or maybe you need some food or whatever the case is. This is a good place to go if you don't like your other options. So yeah, and that's pretty simple. It's pretty much all it is. So that's the Academics Cache. All right, so this node is known as a resistance encounter. It's going to have a slightly different name depending on which biome that you're in, but it is a resistance encounter. And essentially, it's pretty basic. It's a combat node. You have the option to either fight or run. In this case, on the character selection screen, you can see here we have the run option or the fight option, and you can also get different buffs depending on what you roll here. We got speed and debuff resistance buff, and you can also see here we got the have to pay 16 gold to run. So you can always get, there's a few different options here. And then you will have a single round of fight. It will not be combat limited as far as like rounds. It'll be just unlimited until the fight is over. Once you do take the fight, though, you cannot run, so you are stuck in the fight. So yeah, that's pretty much how that works. That is a resistance encounter. So the final node that we're going to be talking about today is the Guardian node, or it calls itself Oblivion's Ingress, very much like a cultist fight, but it's called the Guardian fight. And essentially, this is a guaranteed node. This is a node that you will come across. It is the last node of every biome before you get to the end. Consider it like your last obstacle that you have to get across. It's very similar to the Lair fight in that it is a 3-layered fight. The first 2 layers will be combat against whatever enemies are native to the biome that you're fighting. In this case, we're in the Tangle, so we have Tangle enemies. And then the last one will always be a cultist fight. So you can make your way down, essentially, or you can fight one layer and then leave. And really the benefit of going all the way down is it guarantees you more loot. And if you beat the final area you have a pretty high chance of getting good trinkets from the cultist fight, as well as getting a mastery point from defeating it. So kind of up to you how far you want to go. You don't have to go all the way down. You can just get away with fighting the first layer, but there's no choice. You have to take this fight. You can't run from it. So it's always good to prepare for it. And yeah, that's the Guardian fight. All right, so here we are at the inn. So we're going to talk a little bit about the inn, what you can do at the inn, and kind of just go through all the stuff with it. So one of the first things you're going to want to take a look at here is what the inn is. Every inn is different. There are quite a few of them in the game. They have different effects. Some of them can do things like make items cheaper to purchase. Some of them might make the next area tougher by making certain enemies deal additional damage, might give you more crit, all things like that. Now, what they all will do in the current build of the game is heal your team up to 100% health and then take away 1 stress. So you will always have that base, and some of them will do almost nothing. Like this one doesn't really do anything besides the basic stuff. Others will have more effects. Now, when you get to the end, you're going to have all your characters here. If you do lose a character or even 2 characters, you will have a character that is given to you. A hero will be given to you. Only one will be given to you, though. So you don't get to pick that hero. It'll be random who it's picked. It'll be picked from the roster of heroes that you didn't select. So you can't lose a Jester and then get a Jester back again. You'll never be able to get a Jester again. So just keep that in mind. But you can get to the end with 3 characters and get a full team of 3 or 4. Sorry, if you come here with 2, you're only going to end up with a team of 3. So it's up to you if you want to continue or not. From here, we have a few different menus. The first one you're going to see is the travel log, and this is going to kind of just tell you what happened in the last zone that you were in. So it's going to tell you if you completed your quest that you were given. It's going to give you a rundown of any quirks that your team was given, and also any quirks that happened to you during the run as well. Also diseases, if you lost a hero, a couple other things will be here as well. Like if you got something from the creature den, it'll be listed here. And it's also going to tell you what the loathing is at in the next zone. Next menu that you have is the provisioner. This is pretty simple. This is where you can buy items. This is going to have all of you can have your food here. There'll always be 4 food available to you in the current build of the game. A variation of combat items, items for the stagecoach, and trinkets as well. So this is where you can buy a lot of those items here. You can also separate it into different menus depending if you're looking for something specific. Next, you're going to have the mastery trainer. This is where you can spend your mastery points to go ahead and upgrade abilities. You can see we have 1 mastery point here, so I can go through my characters. I can see what I want to upgrade. It will show you what the upgraded version of that ability will do. And you can see here, if an ability is already upgraded, it will have this kind of blue aura around it and this little arrow, so you know that it can't be upgraded any further. Next is the Wainwright. This is where the only place currently in the game that you can go ahead and modify your stagecoach. So you can take things off, you can put things on. If you have a trophy, this is where you can put it on. We don't know what the pet thing does yet. But yeah, so if you're looking to add items to your stagecoach, this is where you can do it. One of the things that will let you know is if you do have one of the items that lowers the cost of things in the inn, like combat items or inn items or whatever the case may be, you can actually apply that onto the Wainwright and put it on your stagecoach here, and then go back to the provisioner, use it, go back to the Wainwright, and then take that item off. So that's something to keep in mind if you want to like switch items out. This is the only place that you can do so. And then finally, we have the select route. This is where you can find where you're going to go next, what region you're going to go to, what the modifiers are going to be. So you're going to have the the backcountry. This is more cultists, and then this is going to be your quest in the gold here. So this is avoid the hospital, and if you do so, your reward will be 1 mastery point. Or naked and afraid, which is complete without anything on your stagecoach, and you're going to get this telescope. So this is where you can go ahead and select your route. Other things you can do here is you can go to your in items, and you can actually go ahead and use them here. So say we wanted to give some food to our team members, you can just go over to somebody, give them the food, and it's just a drag and drop thing here. So you can just go ahead and do that. If you'd like to apply any of these in items, again, it's just a drag and drop, just drag it over them, and you can go ahead and apply it to them. So pretty simple there. And yeah, so that pretty much covers the inn, and it's one of the, it's the most powerful place in the game to heal, can kind of reset between areas, and plan out your next area that you want to go to and make sure that your team is best prepared for it.